I'm David, the director of We Are Caring. This is a non-profit agency that does not charge salary deductions to workers, and over the last 6 years we've helped more than 4,000 workers to get a job.
I'm Ashraf from Active Global. I'm the General Manager for the Living Department, and Active Global has been in the market hiring caregivers for the past 8 years.
Excessive fees for migrant domestic workers create a lot of different problems. First, of course, the helper will start working and she cannot send money back home. She's going to be under intense pressure from the family to send money for the school or to support the parents, but she's making zero money, right? And so she's going to start to look around, potentially to look for loans from workers or loans from licensed or unlicensed money lenders, and that can be very quickly troublesome for the employer and for the helper herself, right? And so the first impact is, if she makes no money, she will often have to find money whatsoever in a different way. Another aspect is, because there is a salary deduction, the helper will be reluctant to raise any complaint or to discuss any work conditions that she may or may not be comfortable with. She knows that if she's sent back with empty-handed and maybe with a loan that she will have to pay back. At least she's scared of that. So it really prevents an easy communication between the two parties. As an agency, from day one we decided that it would be entirely free for helpers to get jobs. We only charge the employer, okay? But we don't want to overcharge the employer because we're not charging the helper, so we want to also make employers happy by keeping fees low. When you do this, of course you make less revenue per hiring than other agencies. So you need to find ways to save time, to increase the quality, and to make sure that you can have more matching and more good matching, good employment relationship within a limited time. So you look very quickly at things like digitalization, right? So for example, we enable helpers to apply online and to provide their information in a convenient way for them, but also for us. We also looked at streamlining the hiring paperwork, so everything is done with electronic signature. There's no need for back and forth to the office for the employers. They save time, we save time. And we also managed to keep fees low because we consider that the high fees that we experience around are not justifiable. So to be concrete, if a helper in the Philippines, in Indonesia or in Myanmar has to pay 4, 5 or 6 months of salary deduction, there is no correlation whatsoever with real cost on the ground. Generally speaking, we are advocating for much lower fees for all agencies, and we want to ensure transparency of fees, so this is available online, and even if somebody doesn't want to use the agency, they should use our pricing table to negotiate with the other ones.
For us, in order to be a successful business in terms of caregiving, it's never an easy business looking after an elderly patient, and it is also a very stressful situation where a caregiver which is required to look after an elderly patient. Therefore, we want our caregiver to be stress-free in the sense that not be able to think about any loans that they will have to pay. You know, at the end of the month, the salary will be deducted and they will only be getting a certain portion of their money to be sent home and so on. So we do not want that obstacle, that's number one. We want them to be working in an environment where they are happy and they are able to dedicate their passion for the elderly. Yeah? And what I can say for us, of course, in terms of business sense, of course, we will have to charge the employers as well. So there will be a one-time agency fees that will be charged to the employer.
So we decided to enforce a few criteria, a few minimum work conditions. We do not serve families that do not provide a weekly day off. So if they contact us, they can pay a lot of money, high salaries, but if they don't give a weekly day off, we will not be able to serve them. And why we do this, again, it's a matter of fairness. Like, I have a weekly day off, everybody should have one. But also, in case of abuse, how do you ensure that the helper has somebody to talk with about her problems if she doesn't have a day off? And so we want to minimize the drama, we want to ensure good working conditions, so we straight away reject employees that will not comply with that. We also enforce some minimum salary, so that if the employer says, hey, I want a helper, and then the salary is too low, we will explain why it doesn't make sense, and if they want to stick to it, this is fine, but again, it will not be with our agency. And then there is the matter of like, how do you ensure that helpers can have their mobile phone during the day? The reality is you cannot really ensure that. So, but there are some indications. Right? So we have systematic follow-ups with helpers, right? Weeks and months after they're deployed, so that they can share if they have any issue. And so we encountered a couple of times helpers say, hey, my phone is restricted, and we open the conversation with the employer. The situation can be solved or it cannot. If it cannot, then it's going to be the end of employment. We push for a possibility to get another employer, but at the end of the day, this is the employer's decision. So we don't win all the time. Another way to ensure that the helpers can voice their difficulties is that we open 7 days a week. We actually have WhatsApp, Facebook, anything that it's usually easy for them to reach out to us, and we have a full team dedicated, and generally they want to do it. Now, is it enough? Probably not, and we are looking for ideas on how to better ensure that they have a non-stop access to mobile phones.
For our agency, of course, I think the most important thing for our caregivers is their adequate rest time. And their own privacy time, their off days, and so on. So for our company, we believe in at least for the caregiver to have at least a minimum of 2 rest days per month, which we make it as a compulsory for all the employees to follow. Because certain employers, or if we were to look at other agencies, they will be saying that they will prefer the caregiver to be working every day without any off days. But for us, we believe everyone requires their own rest in order to perform better. So they will be given 2 off days per month, which is compulsory as I mentioned earlier. And when it comes to the rest time, of course they'll be given a proper rest time as per MOM regulations. It's at least 8 hours rest per day. But of course during the day, at times if the patient is resting, they are also able to rest, because at times at night the patient will have to get up and go to the washroom and so on. When it comes to handphone usage, we also inform the employer that this is something that is personal, which the caregiver will need to keep, because most of the time, they will need to call their own family members and so on. So we encourage our employers to allow the caregivers to hold on to their mobiles.
Regarding potential disputes between employers and helpers, so we are usually informed by one of the 2 parties. So the first assessment that we have is, do we have to open up the discussion with the other party, or is it a matter of understanding or management, and then we provide some tips without including a 2 parties mediation. If there is a 2 parties mediation, it will be run at the agency, and then there's no secret here, no magic trick. We generally listen to the point of view of the 2 sides, and if it cannot be reconciliated, then we're gonna just explain the best way forward, and that can be continuing the relationship but with some adjustments, or it can be an exit with no drama for 2 parties. The employer will find probably somebody more suitable, and the helper will also have the opportunity to work for another family. Mediation does not work at all times. We actually sometimes are involved in discussion after the helper made her decision, and sometimes she decided to seek help to some shelters. Sometimes she decided to simply stop working, and then it already creates some tension while she's still in the house. And so it's very a case by case, and there are multiple people around that can play a positive role, including NGOs, including mediation services and organizations. So it's just one. piece of that. It's very important that the two parties know exactly what they sign for. Usually the employer is super comfortable with that, they're used to review the contracts and everything, so it's straightforward. For the helper, it may not be the case. So the process is, first we have a phone call, so a conversation on the phone with the helper, or she visits us, because most of the time it's on the phone, where we mention the main points regarding salaries, days off, how many people in the house, and job scope. We mention that on the phone, and then we send the employment contract for electronic signature. So these helpers, like 95% of them, are able to sign a contract online, and the advantage that it creates is that she will get an automated copy, a certified copy that will stay in her mailbox permanently. So she can always refer to this, and this is quite common that after a few months or after 1 year, then the helper decide to check her contract again. It might be regarding home leave or any other kind of things, but this is very useful that they get copied on the contract.
For all our caregivers, they do have their own contract as well, which will be run through by our consultant, point by point towards the caregiver, so they will be well prepared before they start work. Every case is unique. Every case is unique in the sense that every patient needs different care needs and so on. So what I can say is that all caregivers that is joining us, they'll be going through at least 1 week of intensive training with our nurses who's registered at the Singapore Nursing Board. That's number one. And number two, once we have the patient details, we will train the caregiver according to the patient requirements. I think this is very much important for the caregiver, so that they will be much more prepared when they will be deployed over to the patient house. At any point of time, if our caregivers require assistance, can be medical assistance in the sense that how to improve patient life much more better and so on, our nurses is able to step in and assist them. But when it comes to other assistance, like they do not have enough rest or not enough food, or they're being ill-treated and so on, they are able to reach out to their own dedicated consultant directly. That's number one. If our consultant is not available, they are able to reach out to our trainers. Number two, if the trainers is not available, they are also able to reach out to our office, which is 24-hour hotline as well. So there's 3 numbers that our caregivers are able to reach out to if they require any assistance urgently.